I found out who I am, which is an incredible thing to have time to do.
Are you an RV person or are you just RV life curious? Either way, this is a podcast for you. My name is Kate White, and I've interviewed over 50 of my fellow full-time RV women over the past year. These women are not just managing to travel full-time with their spouse, and often with young kids, they're also running a business or a nonprofit as well. These RV queens live a counterculture lifestyle while also pursuing their passion. They're living their dream both personally and professionally. This summer, I'm highlighting 8 of the most popular episodes of the podcast so far. And as a bonus, at the end of the episode, you'll get to hear an update on how the guest's life has changed over the past year. I hope you enjoy the episode and are inspired to keep pursuing your dreams as well. Ladies, I've been searching for a business coach to have on the podcast who knows how to explain the importance of sales in a relatable, interesting way. I have finally found the one. Not only is Dora Rankin a podcast guest, she's also the author of a book called The Heart Sell, which is a guide for women entrepreneurs who want financial freedom. I've read the book and am obsessed with it. If you're looking for a soulful yet strategic way to build your business, head to dorarankin.com and get the Heart Sell book today. All right, friends, let's get real for a sec. Cleaning every part of your RV, including the nasty bits, is a big part of RV life. We use wastewater products for our camper from Unique Camping and Marine that are the best. They have a 2-in-1 toilet cleaner and black tank treatment called Flush It. That is freaking brilliant. Find these and many other useful RV products at uniquecampingmarine.com and use code RVQueens for 15% off your order. Hello, my friends and fellow RV queens. This is Kate White, your host, coming at you from beautiful Southern California. This week, Drew and I, my husband, we are not in the RV. We are at a super fancy resort at a conference for Drew's work. And I got to tell you, it's the first time in 8 months we've been out of the RV and having a little time away from the kids. And it's very refreshing. So as much as we love RV life, every once in a while, it's fun to just be super pampered at a Sticks and Bricks resort. Enough about me. Let's talk about Lia Eyre and the inspiring soul that she is. She went from the corporate breadwinner wife to health hippie RV mom. Like, this woman is so just present and wonderful, and her transformation story is just like, I got goosebumps like 4 times talking to her. Let's get into it. Hello, Lia, and welcome to the RV Queens podcast. How are you today?
I am dandy. How are you?
I'm so good. Where are you in the world right now?
We are in Oklahoma City. It's our first time here.
Oh, nice. How are you liking it?
Well, we got here Sunday evening, and we have not seen any of it other than the car dealership because we dropped our car off on Monday, and then it's actually still there because
oh my gosh,
we needed new brakes, and then everything after that just also needed everything. So we're about $2,000 in, and hopefully getting it back tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, what a classic day in the RV life, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, and then you're saying we have to spend more on these repairs than we thought.
Just double, but that's okay. You know, we have had our truck for 4 years and we haven't done any repairs to it. And so we're really grateful that this is the first time, and we have a slush fund for that because that's obviously been part of our, monthly expense that we've been putting away. So it ended up being not that big of a deal.
Good job, you being smart with your money and preparing. But it is kind of a bummer, like being homebound in an RV in a new city when you get to a new place and you're ready to explore, and no. So
that's been the hardest part is, we've had plans to go to the vegan donut shop and go out to eat. I usually spend Mondays solo and go out to eat somewhere by myself. And last night I spent time solo in the bedroom because I couldn't go anywhere, and it's also raining, so I can't even walk.
Oh my gosh.
But you know what? It is
Womp.
what it is. And then we get the
Yeah.
truck back tomorrow and we can explore.
And how long are you in the area then?
So we are here until Saturday, and then we are going one night in Texas and then a week in Albuquerque. And both of those places are also new to us.
Everyone says the
Yeah.
desert is magical, so hopefully you'll find some magic out there.
Are you still in Florida?
No, we are in Southern California right now, but not by way of the RV, by way of an airplane for my husband's work trip. So I'm actually in a really cushy resort hotel room right now.
Ooh.
And going from RV life and campgrounds to being surrounded by executives and women who do their nails and hair all the time and wear new high quality clothes. I'm just like, oh yeah, I forgot. This is what like the rest of society is doing. Like, it's been such a funny experience for me. It's like the first time in 8 months I'm like back and like, oh yeah, the rest of the world is like cares a lot about stuff and how you look, and it's been fascinating.
Eye-opening.
Yes, for sure. I'm really excited to hear your story today. And where I want to start is back before you were RV mom. We've met in person several times, and I don't think I've ever got the real story about like you before RV life. Who were you back then? And then how did you get into this and why?
It has been quite the evolution. We have been on a journey. So we've been living in our RV for 4 years. We've been traveling in our RV for 3. So a year of it was stationary, which is a whole story within itself because that is just an entirely different way of RV life. I think there's stationary and then traveling, and they just aren't the same. But I really love that we've had an opportunity to do both. I have to take you like way back and tell you like where we came from, how we ended up where we were, and how we ended up where we are now. So Trevor and I, as a couple, met in Portland, Oregon. He's a musician, and I'm just a hippie that hangs out at pubs with live music. And so that's how we met, is he was playing live music. He was playing the accordion, and he had long, like kind of, fuzzy hair going on. We fell in love, and then he was still in college. And so after he graduated with a software engineering degree, we moved to Boise, Idaho, which is where he's actually from originally. And we lived there for a total of 4 years. And we just really were trying to like do the keeping up with the Joneses, but like it just was not for us. Like everybody that we knew thought we were really happy and really thriving, but like we didn't feel that way at all. Like we had that facade. I was working like corporate jobs, wearing like suits, like business suits. I was an executive assistant. And then I went into real estate, working for these high-end realtors, educating them on technology. And I was our breadwinner for a long time. So we've had a complete role reversal. I don't work anymore other than content creation, which started as a hobby and has now come full circle where we're actually pulling income from that as well. But Trevor does still work full time. And luckily, when we stumbled into RV life, we kind of stumbled. We were just living in Idaho, and doing the daily thing and not loving it. And I was like, how can we travel more? How can we spend more time together making memories? We were doing a lot of flying at the time, not for business, but for fun. And so we looked into doing part-time van life. And so I was looking on Instagram at #vanlife, and this was in May 2019. I stumbled across #RVlife when I was, going through those hashtags, and I was like, oh my goodness, people live in RVs? I've never even been in an RV. So I told Trevor, and it was like this instant click for me. I was just like, I'm going to live in an RV. That's outstanding. And so we weren't even in the same city at the time. I was in Portland visiting with Lennon, our daughter, and my family. And I text Trevor and I said, go stand in an RV and tell me what you think. And so he's like, okay, I'll try that. And so we called each other. We were both standing in RVs in different states. And I was like, do you want to live in one? And he was like, sure. And so literally 7 days later, I traded in both of our cars and bought a truck, a Dodge Ram 3500. 30 days after that, we lived in an RV.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's intense. Were you did you guys live in an apartment before or a house?
We were renting. So we had gone on a journey of growth through that because we lived in Portland, tiny city, very expensive. We lived in 300, 600, 900, 1,200 square feet. And then when we moved to Idaho, we moved to 2,300 square feet in a 2-car garage because, we were trying to do the keeping up with the Joneses. And we're like, you need a big house, all these things. We were renting. It was great. We hated the size of it because we were just like, we've lived tiny before and like it's so much more manageable and more fun. And so, yeah, we have never lived anywhere for over a year other than the RV, which we've lived 4 years. So we're just funky. We like minimalism. It really fuels us. And I don't think we'll ever live in anything more than like 900 square feet ever again.
I love it so much. So it doesn't sound like it was a struggle for you to downsize. It sounds like you were already looking for a more minimalist life.
It wasn't a struggle mentally. I do think I wish we had downsized more. We lived here stationary and we didn't really, know anything about RVs. We had never been in one, let alone towed one. And so when we moved into it, because it was a 30-day period, there was not a lot of time to get rid of stuff. And so going from 2,300 square feet to 300 square feet, we live in a 35-foot 11 fifth wheel. We didn't have a lot of time to distribute things to either trash, donate, rehome. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it ended up in storage. I wish that maybe we had gotten rid of more because the storage, we still have that storage and we have not been there in 4 years. And so we obviously don't need any of those things. And the rates doubled last year in 1 month. We are currently en route to Idaho for the summer with the sole intentions of ditching our storage unit.
Oh man, I bet that's going to be a fun purge. You're going to be like, why did we, what? Because you had Lennon before you started living in the RV and like she was a baby then, wasn't she?
18 months old. Yep, she was a baby. She was in a crib when we first moved to the RV and now she's in a top bunk. Because now she's 5.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you were the breadwinner and then you made the switch to Trevor making the money after he went into software engineering. So was it a big change for you to all of a sudden like live in an RV and not be the breadwinner anymore and be like just the mom in an RV?
Mentally, that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my entire life. I was a workaholic. So when we lived in Portland, I was working like 60 hours a week. And that was just the norm there in order to keep up with housing costs. And, we like to travel. And so we were spending more money than saving, was no way to live long term. When we moved to Idaho, we went there with the intentions that 1, we were going to start a family. 2, we knew that when we started a family, we wanted to be present with our child. And so that meant that we couldn't work 60 hours and 40 hours anymore. So when we moved and I changed jobs, I intentionally set out to do just 30 hours a week. So for me, that was a complete cut in half of what I was working. I felt like I had all the time in the world all of a sudden. We did that before Lennon was born, before I was even pregnant, just to get me used to it because I had been for 10 years working 60 hours a week to live in Portland, and that was hard to do as a single woman before we were married. And so I was constantly working like multiple jobs just to keep up with it. And then when we got married, Trevor was still in school. So I was like, okay, I got to work even harder because I got to pay for 2 people. He was still working, but it's just, it's so expensive in some of these large cities in order to keep up. The transition from 60 hours to 30 was that was great. But then when Lennon was born, it was about a year and a half after we started living there, I had intended to work just 10 hours a week or quit my job. And I wasn't sure which. I knew that quitting my job just seemed like a little bit stark for me, like going from, this hardworking career woman in corporate America to just like, oh, I don't work at all. I couldn't fathom it. When Lennon was born, I spent about 6 months on maternity leave. It was supposed to be 3, but she was a NICU baby, and I went through a lot of trauma during that. And so I needed some time to heal before I got back into that space. And then when I did, I liked going to work one day a week. I physically went into the office at that time, and it felt good. I gave a 1-year notice for my job when we decided to move into the RV. That's how dedicated I was as like a loyal employee. I was like, here's my 1-year notice. And my boss is like, you're insane. I love you. So,
oh my goodness.
I worked for another year, hired someone, trained them. They were a fabulous fit. And the transition, because I had done it so intentionally from 60 hours to 30 hours to 10 to just, here's my 1-year notice, I think I was able to reduce in such a way that it wasn't drastic. And so while we were living stationary, I did work for a year. The pandemic did hit, let's say it was March 2019, right? We were due to leave to start traveling in May 2019, and my job was supposed to end in March, but things just got really complicated because it's a really weird time to start traveling. And it's a really weird time to say, I'm going to go drive around the United States of America, and I can't go into any buildings. So we stalled for a month. We stayed stationary until June, just trying to decide, what are we doing? Like, am I, and in May, I did quit my job, but from March to May, I was like, do I quit my job? Or like, is everything going to hit the fan? Like, do I need to keep my income? What's going on? So that part made it harder, but I don't know. In May, we just decided in May, we're like, you know what? We can live in fear for the rest of our lives and never go anywhere, or we can just see what happens. So we changed routes from what we originally thought we were going to do. We were from the Pacific Northwest, Oregon and Idaho originally, and so we always intended to go straight to the East Coast, right? But because we were so confused about pandemic and shutdowns, and like even some places were starting to talk about closing borders for states, we were like, okay, we better stay where we know people. So we initially went to Oregon and spent like almost 6 months there because it just felt safe. And then we went to California, which is a really funny time to go to California because it was one of the most strict states to be visiting. But again, we had been to California so many times. We knew people there. We just felt safe. I will say, though, that ended up being probably, this sounds horrible, but one of the best years of our lives because nobody was out exploring. And we had all of the hiking trails to ourselves. We had beach. We were on the coast the entire year, and we had every beach to ourselves. And I'm not afraid to go out traveling solo in the day with Lennon. So Lennon and I drove to every single beach along the Oregon and California coastline from top to bottom.
That's so special. Wow. Yeah. And I totally relate with what you're saying about the year 2020, when, I mean, like really crazy things were happening in the world, obviously. But for our nuclear family, like the shutdown and, like when everyone was just staying inside, or you could go on a walk in nature, it's basically your only options. That slowdown was like a huge positive shift for our family because I had been working in an office like 40 to 50 hours a week, and my husband had been working in a hospital and ended up quitting that job that year. And that like all of a sudden, like very like present, there's nothing else to do but be present with your family. And it was a breath of fresh air, to be honest. As far as silver linings go, I completely relate with that. And I'm glad that you were able to find such a positive way to get on the road. And it wasn't exactly what you had thought that starting out on the road would be, but sounds like you found a way.
Yeah, it ended up being the most beautiful experience. And I felt like it led us to having that time with our family, just the three of us. It built such a strong love for this lifestyle because we did so much, just the three of us, that first year. And that sounds lonely, but you know what? That is exactly what we needed when we set out. I was volunteering for all these things, which I enjoyed, but I was running myself ragged. I'm an only child. I'm not used to having like family relations or like things I have to attend. And we moved from Oregon to Idaho. Trevor is one of 7, and 5 of those siblings were living there at that time, and they all have approximately 5 children. So it became very busy. Yeah. And yes. I love them all, and I wanted to be there at all of their sporting events, all of their concerts, everything. And I was doing that, and I don't know. I think I was doing it not always for me. You just can't do that all the time. You have to say no. So I had to learn to say no. And for us, like going on the road and traveling has just created these boundaries that we never knew we needed. We love our family, but I enjoy being around them with very intentional time.
Oh man, I can relate with that a lot.
I think
good
we
for
get
you.
So
it sounds
much,
like you guys were able to calibrate to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, we get so much more out of spending time with our family, like our extended family, when it is a special occasion or when it's one-on-one and it's not 30 people in a house crammed together. We'd rather have dinner with one family one night and another family another night, and then still do the big things occasionally, but not every week. It's just too much.
Something else that sounds like you've become passionate about over the past few years is health.
Oh, yeah.
On social media, you're a self-proclaimed health hippie. So is that something that started around the same time? Have you always been vegan and very intentional with your food choices? Or has that kind of evolved as you've been on the road?
I think this is so funny because it is like one of the most evolved areas of my life. Because when I first met Trevor 10 years ago, I had not eaten a single vegetable like in my entire life.
What?
Especially if it was green, which is my favorite color. But I was not pushed to eat vegetables as a child. My dad doesn't eat vegetables. My dad's a pretty hardcore carnivore. My mom was like a vegetarian when I was growing up. Basically, I was very confused about food. I was not well educated on nourishment. And so when I made the transition of working 60 hours a week to 30 hours a week, I had mentioned that I kind of got like overwhelmed with the amount of freedom of time that I had. And I was like, I'm going to learn to cook, because I had no idea. I didn't cook anything. I ate cheese and bread, and that was it. That's all I had eaten in my entire life. I didn't eat meat until I was 20, and then I stopped before I was 30. So I am a very weird food person in my past experience. But when I had all this time, I was like, I'm going to learn to cook. So I did. I bought a crock pot and learned to make soups, and like got very familiar with just flavor profiles, and I wasn't familiar with because I had not experienced any of them. And I instantly fell in love with it. And then it just evolved from there. I started to work out before we had a child, again, because I had time to do it now. And when we were in Idaho, I started going to Orange Theory Fitness, and I loved the community that I found there. And I finally, for the first time in my life, enjoyed exercise because it was like a group fitness. So yeah, I started doing fitness, and I was like, okay, well, if I'm exercising, I should also probably be fueling my body in a way that it's going to, naturally start to manage itself in a healthy way. And so I started trying vegetables. Trevor encouraged me to start trying vegetables. A lot of that helped when we moved to Idaho because of those family dinners and things we were doing, and just being around more people who were, like really confused about how I survived on cheese and bread for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So I started trying things, and to my surprise, I liked them. And so I think the first vegetable I learned to cook was Brussels sprouts, which seems like a pretty advanced flavor. But I just loved them. And it was like my body was craving them after I had them. All I wanted to eat was vegetables. So it was actually after we started traveling that we went vegan. We had already been kind of leaning that way. We were eating mostly pescatarian style for a long time. I never did eat birds or much meat. It was always pretty minimal. It wasn't something I craved. And we, after going vegan, realized that we think Trevor has alpha-gal syndrome, which is a tick-borne illness where your body basically has an allergy to mammalian products or red meat. Mammalian products is any animal that nurses from its mother. And so going vegan was one of the best things that ever happened to us, because before that, we thought Trevor may have Crohn's disease. He was having a lot of just digestive issues and just reactions to food, where he would spend nights in the bathroom expressing from both ends, and it was eventful. It was really sad to watch, because I was watching my spouse suffer from eating, and we couldn't pinpoint what it was, but we just figured it was Crohn's disease, because my mother-in-law has Crohn's disease, and then so do a few other people in his extended family. So yeah, veganism was a true gift to us because it gave us Trevor's health. So now I'm like all about it.
Can I ask you something else about hippie stuff?
Yeah.
And it has to do with your hair. And I don't know if the proper term is dreads or not, but
locks.
I'm just so curious. Locks. Oh my gosh.
Like
I'm sorry.
LOCS. That's okay.
I hope I didn't just offend you. But I'm like truly curious. Like, as a woman, changing your outer appearance is usually like a reflection of like what's going on inside. So for you, what was the journey to like having locks, or like how do you do that? And what did it mean to you to like all of a sudden have your hair like that? Is it okay that I just asked you that?
Oh, no, that's great. I am glad that you touched on that, because I think dreadlock education is like very, I don't know, it's not out there. There isn't a lot of information on it. And so I'll give you my background. So one, Trevor had locks when shortly after we first met, and I installed them. So I hand back combed them and palm rolled them and just spent 2 years loving them. They were beautiful, but he's a bald man now because of genetics. So he does not have them anymore. And after he parted with them, I always knew that it would be a journey that I took on. I didn't know when. And so when we moved into the RV, I knew that the day we started traveling, I would be installing dreadlocks, because for me, it just like you mentioned, it is a journey. Like that is the key word, is that dreadlocks and locks are a journey. They're an expression of an experience in your life, or a change, usually. So no one will cut their locks unless genetics or a major change in their life that is significant and you want to express in that way. And so when we started traveling, I immediately booked with a loctician. I had mine professionally installed, which I highly recommend if someone is curious about dreadlocks, because it is a lot of work. Mine are done in a crochet method, so it's using a crochet hook, and it is all my own natural hair. Yes. And so
gosh, that is so
the
amazing.
the maintenance is also really fun. I have been to, I believe, I may have lost count at this point, but I think it's 9 locticians across the United States at this point. And I have never been to the same one twice. And not because I don't appreciate them or want to go there. It's just with traveling, we've been to 31 states in the last 3 years. I can't often go back to that person. So they've all been recommendations from the previous loctician. And then I wear a lot of accessories in my hair, beads. This is a handcrafted made bead from one of the locticians. Every single bead that I wear or wrap that I wear in my hair has a story of where it came from. And then the last thing that I really love about them, and that is not necessarily common, is that I have added my daughter's hair into mine as a way of locking in just her spirit with mine. And so I did that myself with my crochet hook. This right here is some of her hair in my hair.
Oh my gosh. Is this like a subculture that you just kind of become a part of? Like, how do you know how to like do all that? And, like,
it is.
The meaning behind the beads and the ribbons and stuff is so fascinating.
Yeah, it's really a subculture in itself. So once, you're in the RV life, so you know that we are a subculture. I have a subculture within my subculture. A lot of locticians are also travelers or artists or hippies. So some of the people I have received loctician work from are also travelers. So like one of them is a bus dweller, and she was in Oregon when I initially visited her, but she lives in Colorado now. She's from Florida originally. And we all have just a very similar mindset and intention with the way that we live. And so, yeah, we have, on Instagram, that's what brought us together, right? It's the same for locticians. I follow a bunch of them and have relationships with them and nurture those relationships as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. I was like insatiably curious, but I didn't want it to be like an offensive question. So I'm glad you were open to talking about it.
If you ever have any other questions about it, feel free to ask me. I know that a lot of people are nervous to ask just because it's not a common style that you'll see. But I just absolutely appreciate and love the artistry.
Oh, man. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. So you've been on the road 4 years now. Do I have the math right?
RV dwelling 4 years, traveling for 3.
Okay. From meeting you in person, I mean, I could tell you're just like such a warm, wonderful human. And how have you found community on the road? Is it mostly through social media, or do you have like certain groups or meetups that you have gravitated towards?
So social media is kind of the easy answer on that. But we are members of Full-Time Families as well. We have not been to any of their rallies yet, which I don't know how. But we are signed up to go to the Balloon Fiesta in October with Full-Time Families, and it'll be our first rally event, and I'm really excited for it. But Full-Time Families is a membership group that you can join, and then you're connected with others, most commonly through the Thousand Trails chats. If you are a Thousand Trails member, that has been for us the best way of connection, because once you're added into those chats, there's one for every Thousand Trails campground, which there's like 200 and some campgrounds. You can then just announce, and these are private. They're only people who are part of this membership. You can announce, I'm coming on these dates. I have a child who's XYZ age, and she'd be interested in playing with others. These are her interests, and it's really easy to connect in that way. And most of the time, we already have some things in common just because we're RV dwellers, so it's pretty easy for us to get along with those people.
Oh, that's great. That's good tactical info. So good advice right there. When you think back to the Lia that was working in corporate America and wearing suits and stuff like that, and you now, tell me what has changed.
Literally everything. Literally everything has changed. I found out who I am, which is an incredible thing to have time to do. I think that a lot of people in the United States today and around the world we live in such like a hustle culture. We just don't even know who we are. And there's so much advertising that affects us, even in ways that we aren't witnessing. So we are created to be these humans who go to work and look a certain way and do certain things. And I just think that being intentional with the way that we live and intentional with our time has allowed us, myself, to be able to figure out what I want to look like, what I want to represent, and who I want to be around. And that's been a really beautiful adventure in itself. It's funny. I was thinking about this yesterday, knowing that we were going to be talking, and that to me has been one of the most beneficial things of changing the way we live. When we moved into the RV, I did not keep any of my clothes. I got rid of all of them. I was like, that's not who I am. And I don't like shopping. And I had it for years. My mom also worked in corporate America, loved to buy suits, she loves fashion, all these things. So I literally was giving her like an allowance of money to buy me clothes every year. And it's not that I didn't appreciate that, but I looked at those clothes when I was going to transition them from the house to the RV, and I was like, not a single one of those is even a color I like. I like neutral tones. Those are all like pinks and blues, and like, they don't represent in my mind who I am at all. So I literally just dumped it all on my garage floor and had like the neighbors' teenagers come and get whatever they wanted. All my nieces came. And then whatever didn't get picked up, I donated to like a business. You may know the name of this charity. You can basically donate suits and like high-end clothes for people who are looking to get jobs.
Yeah. I've heard of that before. I can't remember the name of it. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes because that's such a cool organization.
A really good one for anyone transitioning from like a corporate life, if they are making a transition to the RV and they're going to be wearing like their sweatpants and their yoga pants and their jeans every day. It's a great place to donate to.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So yeah, I don't look anything the same. I also didn't have dreadlocks yet, but I had been growing my hair for them for many years. I used to dye my hair. I used to do my nails, all the things. I don't even wear makeup except for like maybe once every 3 months now.
Oh man, good for you. Oh, I love it so much. And it's like the freedom of time to be able to explore, like figure out what you're wanting and then spend the time like exploring those interests, to me, that's just like, that's the freedom that everyone wants, just like time to pursue what I want to pursue. What? That's so cool. That's what
it's incredible.
For our little family too. That's even in how we're educating our kids now. Like we homeschool. It's kind of like homeschooling / unschooling, kind of a open-handed approach that we have. But especially our 8-year-old daughter, like she just has the time to sit and learn about whatever she wants to learn about that day. And she's a very self-motivated, unique kid. So for example, like the other day she sat, I'm not kidding, for 2 hours, she sat and practiced like cursive because that's what she was interested in learning that day. Or some days it'll be crochet. Some days she gets like really deep into her math workbooks, and it's just, I love that freedom of you get to learn and explore what lights you up. It's like what this life is all about, in my opinion. So cool.
It's so cool to actually have the time to have hobbies. Like I remember living in a house and people would generically ask you and have these very shallow, surface level conversations of like, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? And I'm like, I don't have time for hobbies. Like,
oh my gosh, 100%.
Yeah, like I don't have a time for a hobby. And now I've done all of these weird, I'm always doing weird random things. I'm like, I'm going to learn how to, obviously cooking. I dove real deep into cooking, dove into baking. And then I've even taken up like embroidery and roller skating and
Nice.
we already loved hiking, but now we have time to do it. We go to a museum every week. We go to a library every week. It's really cool.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm like, back in the day when I used to work all the time, like my husband would golf occasionally. That was his hobby. And then he would, if there was ever a weekend that we had downtime, he'd be like, why don't you go, do something that you want to do? And I'm like, I don't even know like what I like to do. Like I just like work all the time, and then I do all the domestic like groceries and take care of the kids
because
and stuff like that.
You didn't have time to even know that about yourself, and now you do.
Yeah. I did it like when we hit the road, I started reading. Well, actually before that, probably in 2020 when everything slowed down. Like I had never read fiction in my life until that year. And I used to be like really big in nonfiction and mindset and all that stuff. And I still am. But as far as like relaxing goes, like sitting and reading a book for an hour, I actually do that now. I have something that I just sit there and enjoy. What?
Yep.
This is bizarre.
I read my first nonfiction as well.
Right. It's so cool. Oh, I can read now. I can bake for fun, not because we're having people over or like for a reason, It's awesome.
And you get to do these things with your children as well.
Right.
Because you have time to be around them.
And not to mention I'm like a way happier person when I'm doing it with them.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference. Oh my goodness.
Doing things together instead of 4.
And I would love to. I mean, I wish I could just invite you over right now and we could go chill at the pool. But one of these days, I want you to answer one more question for me, and then I'll have you tell everyone where they can connect with you online. So the slogan for this podcast is a podcast about unexpected riches. And so I would love to hear what is the unexpected richness that you have found in RV life.
I already know my answer because I knew you were going to ask that because you always ask. And for me, it came up a lot in our conversation today, but it is the richness of individuality and understanding and respecting yourself enough to give yourself the time to find out who you are and honor that. That has been the most beautiful thing that myself, my daughter, my husband, even my dogs have individuality that we value, it has been the most beautiful thing that we could ever be intentional enough to experience.
I just got goosebumps when you said that. I love it so much.
I may have cried when I was going through last night thinking about what you were going to ask, and I was like, she's going to ask about this richness, and I told you earlier that I was journaling about what I would want to kind of share. And that was where I ended. And I was just like crying a little bit. I'm like, Trev, this is like, I like talking about our life now because it brings me so much joy.
Oh my goodness. I love it. And thank you for being so generous and like vulnerable and honest with it too. That's why we all love you. You're just so
thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you for having me. It's been so awesome. And I've been really enjoying listening to everyone on the podcast. And you've even had people I don't know, which makes me excited too. So I can follow them and, learn more about other people in this lifestyle.
Oh, good. Yeah. And there's such a wide range of types of people. It's been really fun to get to know everyone on, even for like 1 hour chunks of time. I'm like, oh, all these new friends.
Yes, you're going to have a lot of new friends.
For sure. Tell us where we can connect with you online.
So we are llamallamaadventure on Instagram. I say we, but it's always me. I do share content with Trevor sometimes in it, but I'm the creator on there. And then Lennon sometimes will help me. She's our 5-year-old daughter. And then we have 2 dogs as well who are featured.
And you're on just all the platforms, Llama Llama Adventure.
Llama Llama Adventure on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Will you share what's the meaning behind Llama Llama Adventure?
It's an evolving meaning. We know that at some point in time, there's llamas behind me on the wall. Nice. We know that at some point in time, we don't know where or when. As we travel longer and longer, we believe that this is further and further out just because we are so in love with traveling still. But we would love to have a llama sanctuary where we house and care for llamas who need a little extra love, or perhaps we can even do a little bit of a therapy program where you can certify llamas as therapy animals, and then you can take them to hospice and cancer facilities and help people who are in like hospice care or palatable care, and just give them some animal interaction. And I find llamas to be the most fascinating and curious and kind animals. So we just know that we want to house them someday and take care of them.
Oh my gosh, that is exceedingly cool. And they're kind of like really big, weird, fuzzy dogs. So I'm not surprised that they can be used for like support animals. That is the coolest ever.
Yeah. And we've been staying at llama and alpaca farms all around the U.S. using Harvest House whenever we can, just to like get a little taste of it.
I love it so much. So cool. You're the coolest, Lia. Thank you for being on today. I really, really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Kate. It's been amazing. Hey, RV Queens. This is Lia from llamallamaadventure, and I'm back with an update for you. Last time we talked was in 2023, and we covered all that there is to know about my transformation from a suit-wearing, 60-hour-a-week executive assistant and real estate professional in 2019 to a dreadlock-sporting, RV-living hippie with a goal to be debt-free by 2024. Well, life has been quite the roller coaster since then. First off, let's address the big question. Did our family meet our goal to being debt-free by our 5-year nomadiversary in June 2024? The short answer is nope. Trevor was unexpectedly laid off from his remote software engineering job just before Thanksgiving in November 2023. So our plans took a bit of a detour. After 2 months of job hunting during the holidays, and let me tell you, nobody hires during that time of year, we decided to dive headfirst into our entrepreneurial dreams of being full-time content creators. We knew we could not survive on this alone right away, so Trevor picked up a web development client, and we doubled our content creation income in just 6 months. That sounds awesome, right? Unfortunately, while Trevor sent out several big project proposals to line up more web development clients to keep us afloat as we continue to build our client portfolio for creative services and travel, all of those proposals fizzled out. So we have to face reality. We cannot sustain this lifestyle without Trevor bringing in more consistent web dev work, in addition to us working to grow our content creation business. It turns out men in the tech world still make a hell of a lot more money than women and newcomers in the content world. Let me share this. The day Kate asked me for an update, I really wanted to tell her it was going to be better than we could have ever anticipated. But that simply isn't the truth. We literally reviewed our 6-month progress the day she asked me, and I was not in a good mood because the results were not what I had hoped they would be. I wanted to share with Kate that everything we had dreamed of was coming true. But it's not my style to sugarcoat things. I made a promise to myself when I started this journey as a creator and aspiring influencer that I would always share my authentic experience so that others know the real Llama Llama adventure, the ups and the downs. So while Kate caught me on the biggest days of disappointment in the last 6 months, I really appreciated her timing. Having Kate care enough to check in with us and hear our update reminded me that I didn't have any reason to be disappointed in our efforts. Sure, we didn't meet our goals, and we aren't going to survive without Trevor returning to work for an outside employer. But you know what? We tried something hard, something that terrified us, something that we would not, on our own at this point in our journey, if Trevor had not been laid off, tried. We braved it, and we accomplished a lot of things we didn't know we could do. To be fully transparent, as challenging as these 6 months have been, they have been filled with some of my favorite moments in all 5 years of our nomadic living. We know that we do want to live off entrepreneurial income only. And we know everything we need to do to get there. We're just not ready yet, and that's okay. So here's what's next. Is content creation over for us? Absolutely not. I'm still creating full-time, and Trevor will help me when he can. But to pay our bills, become debt-free, and eventually retire, we need more income. Trevor will be seeking part-time or full-time work that can help our family do those things while we continue to scale our business. Will we continue to travel? Absolutely. In the next 6 months, we will be visiting Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Rhode Island, Virginia, and South Carolina. 7 of those states will be new to us. Moral of the story, full-time content creation is a tough gig. It's a long-haul journey and not somewhere you land overnight or in 6 months. We spent 6 months in Florida saving on fuel and growing our client base. Even with a year-over-year 4 times income increase in our content services, it's not enough for us to live on full-time. For now, we're setting a goal to try this again once our income from content creation crosses over 6 figures. We have a long way to go, but we know that in time we will get there. Before we go, I want to share a few of the most difficult challenges we faced over the last 6 months. Number 1 is that there are a lot of brands out there that are going to ask you to trade your content for services, which, to be frank, is frustrating and devaluing. These brands should not be asking this. I've realized that the majority of creators in the startup phase do not realize that an exchange of content for services is a taxable event. If you aren't being compensated for the content you create, you better have a way to fund the tax you're going to pay on it. I've learned that content creation may be one of the most expensive jobs in the 21st century. Here's my solution to this challenge. Set a minimum buy-in for partnerships and collaborations, and only exchange content if it's something you really want and would be buying on your own with your own cash otherwise. In addition to this, aim for multi-month deals and long-term brand partnerships. The work you create in a multi-month contract is going to have a hell of a lot more value to both you and the brands you're working with than a one-time content exchange, which is very transactional. So you know what, queens? Set big goals, try things out, measure your results, and flex and adjust as needed. You may not be ready to make your goals a reality today, but you can continue to take steps to reach them in the future. Thanks again, Kate, for checking in on us. I want to know now, what's your dream? We hope you'll follow us in chasing ours. You can find us at llamallamaadventure on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. We also do a bi-weekly live update on Instagram and Facebook on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'd love to see you there. See you on the road.
All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode and for being my favorite part of RV life. If you could please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, that would be awesome. And listen, if you want to have conversations like I had on this episode with your fellow RV women, head to rvqueenspodcast.com/community and choose your RV Queen Circle today. All right, guys, I'll see you next week, or hopefully I will see you on the road.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's intense.